Welcome everybody, welcome back in my channel. My name is Filippo Bertozzo, dinosaur paleontologist here in Brussels, Belgium. Welcome back to my channel. This evening with a really important guest that I wish to have since I know you from the first book. And finally, I have you here, Dr. Nathan Barling from England. Yup. And also main director of PalaeoGames. Hi, Nathan. Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for inviting me on. I'm the director of PalaeoGames, and I'm also a research scientist at Ecco University.
Actually, I really want to know your scientific background before moving towards the game section because yeah, this is what I'm most interested about, especially the academic scientific part first, and then we go towards the more childish part, if you allow me so. So guys, for those of you that are just joining us, welcome. In my channel, usually we talk about dinosaur paleontology. And most of the time also tabletop RPG, TTRPG. There are thousands names to define them. So if you don't know what we're talking about, think about Dungeons and Dragons, but not in the bad nerdy way of 1995. Think about the professional, serious, and very fun version of 2025. Why we are here? So, if you know my channel, you know that one of the main mission, one of the main aim of my channel is to use tabletop RPG games to do scientific outreach. There are many games out of there that you can use to do scientific outreach about geology, archaeology, art, history of civilizations, astronomy, astronomical science, and even paleontology. And Nathan here, together with Dr. Sullivan and their teams, they are doing it very well, I'd say, thanks to a book that is published already. That is this one. We will talk about later, but also a new one that is out now in the Kickstarter, and I asked my moderator to go to Kickstarter and try to find it, so we put the link in the stream. That is the Professor Primula's Portfolio Paleontology. It took me a long time to try to remember all the name, the entire title, but I know that for you is kinda obvious. For me it wasn't, so everything started with the same letter, and once I realized it, now it's super easy to remember it.
That's one of the things we wanted to do, was have unusual titles for these books, and they kind of they kind of call back to some of the older D&D books where you would have a person's name and then the thing that they're containing is like a compendium of creatures or something like that. So we wanted to do that with alliteration and then make it paleontology themed as well.
Yeah, reminds me of Volo's Guide to Monster. That
Exactly,
is
yeah.
very simple, but the concept is the same. So the first book is Dr. Drohlin's Dictionary of Dinosaurs, DDDDD, and Professor
Yep.
Primula's Portfolio Paleontology. Now I just wondering what's gonna be the next titles.
Honestly, we've got
I
like
saw-
six lined up.
I
So many names.
saw a comment in the Kickstarter with one of your baker already proposing some ideas. So I think there was something written there. So it's a fun concept. So let's things first come. Who are you? First of all, as a scientist, that is the thing that interests me the most right now.
So I'm a PhD paleontologist. I got my PhD at the University of Portsmouth. I now work as a research associate with the University of Exeter. So it's not a paid research position, but that's because I put most of my time into PalaeoGames and another company I run as well. So in terms of my research, this is the big secret. I'm a big fraud, you see. I'm not a vertebrate paleontologist.
No, exit this live.
I'm an invertebrate paleontologist.
No, I'm joking.
So specifically, I work on taphonomy. My undergraduate thesis interests were in exceptional preservation, and I carried that through to my PhD, where I actually worked on Brazilian material. I worked on the Crato Formation.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, really good stuff. I worked on the insects, so not the same sort of issues of legality that are plaguing the field. Obviously, we want to, repatriate anything that needs to be repatriated. Insects are often not included in that. So there was quite a large number of specimens to work on, I was very, very fortunate to do so. And to be even more specific, I look at iron sulfide replication of soft tissues. So my PhD thesis was on examining the insects and coming up with a geochemical model for their preservation, as well as running some sort of large-scale analyses on the quality of preservation, which components are being preserved and why. So that's kind of where my research sat at for a long time. My last paper was on the same material, but working with a team here at Exeter and an international team of China, we discovered that there were some fossil bacteria preserved on some of the insects that I had examined.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and they are ludicrously well preserved, is the only way I can describe it. Sub-micron scale preservation in full 3 dimensions. It's phenomenal. So that was published in Geology. Since then, I've taken a little bit of a research hiatus to focus on PalaeoGames and to focus on my other company, DinoCon, to make sure that we're keeping those running smoothly. And then I plan to go back into doing a bit more research. I think actually looking at my own sort of resume now, it would be potentially suitable for me to move into research in the public perception of science. We've been discussing that internally within our team. It's something that Michael, Dr. O'Sullivan, is very, very passionate about and has some plans for papers on already. And we're getting as much first-hand experience in that as it's possible to get, right? So, that's kind of where we're leaning research-wise. But at the moment, we spend an awful lot of time researching vertebrate paleontology.
I wonder why.
Yeah.
Now, finally, you answer my question of why the Crato formation in the Dr. Drohlin. Well,
yeah, it's my favorite, but also it's one of these fossil localities that is known to experts and to people that are particular enthusiasts, but to the general layperson that never heard of it. So, they know Hell Creek and that sort of place and Solnhofen. But beyond that, you don't find people often know about the Crato Formation, and it's got some amazing animals in it as well. Some truly exceptional creatures.
And the Crato Formation, I might be wrong because my memory is very bad for formations that I don't work with. Is late Cretaceous or early Cretaceous?
Early Cretaceous.
Early Cretaceous.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting time in terms of the geological timescale with the radiation of angiosperms. So it's like you get all sorts of really interesting stuff in there.
It is indeed interesting because my personal formation is Gadofao, the one of Oranosaur in Niger. that is Albion Aptian. So yeah, buddies.
All the best stuff is, right?
Well, no, seriously. The more I'm working with the, I know I was one of those late Cretaceous kid, Hadrosaurs, Ankylosaurs, but the more I work with early Cretaceous, I'm working with early Cretaceous from Portugal. I'm working with early Cretaceous from Niger. I went to Niger with Paul Serino in 2022 to dug some very nice dinosaur from the Sahara for 2 months. The more I work with the early Cretaceous, especially in the Albion Aptian enigmatic transition that nobody can understand, the more I fell in love with the early Cretaceous. It's such an incredible time. More interesting for me than the late Jurassic or even the late Cretaceous.
Yeah, I agree. But then, hey, that's personal preference from workload. So
Totally. So, that is very interesting what you do. I didn't know your academic background. It's very cool to know. But at a certain point, you decided to work literally on D&D, let's call it. So my following question is, what's your experience with D&D prior Dr. Drollin's or the idea of PalaeoGames?
So, in terms of my experience with D&D, I first started playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was started at university.
So you are quite late like me. You're not one of those.
Well, I was 18 at the time, which is quite a few years ago now. So that was during 3.5 when most people were playing. I really, really enjoyed it. Got on really, really well with D&D. Played some other TTRPGs as well. Tried a few, got into a lot of board games too, so was very much in the tabletop world. And then my real true tabletop love that you can see behind me, was into Warhammer as well. So I really, really enjoy the process of building models, making models, and having war games and sort of role-playing tabletop games. And that passion has been with me throughout my entire life. So I played a fair bit of D&D. I was always a player at that point, and it wasn't until COVID hit that me and my friends really, really got back into D&D to really like keep us sane, basically.
Like many of us.
Yeah. So I was very, very familiar with D&D before then, but when COVID happened, we were playing every day, hours and hours a day. Taking turns to be dungeon masters, really getting to grips with it. And there was actually one point during COVID where we were doing an encounter that my dungeon master had organized, and we were fighting a T-Rex. And
I know where this is going.
Yeah, and basically we fought it, we killed it, and at the end of it was like, what was that? Nothing happened. It didn't do anything. It just stood there biting and whacking its tail and then died. It was the most underwhelming D&D encounter we had, and we had started at level 1. So I left kind of with a bit of a sour taste in my mouth over that, and thought to myself, well, I can design better monsters than that, and also I can because I'm a paleontologist, I can add abilities and characteristics to these animals that are reflective of their real anatomy and real behavior. So that was where kind of the idea was first seeded. And then Humblewood happened. And I don't know if you know this, but Humblewood by Hit Point Press, launched on Kickstarter, made over 1 million. And suddenly the whole world realized, like, whoa, okay, you can do this as a career, and you can launch into it. And it just so happens that I also, because I'm a paleontologist, I'm in the paleontological world, I know a lot of paleo artists. And I know paleo artists that are wanting to try and move into doing this full time. So a good friend of mine, Mark Whitten, teamed up with me, and I pitched the idea to him. He thought it was crazy, and he's not wrong. It was crazy. And we set out a plan. It was in 2021 that this So after COVID sort of had really hit, we kind of formulated that this could work. I remember the exact moment when I was sat in my I was in my mother-in-law's kitchen, talking to her and talking to my wife about Humblewood, about TTRPGs, and there was like a moment where it clicked with me, and I said, I know all of these artists, I know all of the science. I can do, publishable writing because I write scientific papers. I've got a suite of players that can game test with us. One of whom has done formal game testing for another 5e product. So we've got some like expertise. I've got other friends and family who are, legal experts and backgrounds in business, and it just all came together. And like overnight, we had a plan.
Wow.
And yeah, it was really bizarre. And we sat there, we thought it all out, we planned it all out, and we thought, let's try this. And then we spent a good part of 8 months prepping everything, getting everything in place, discussing it all, hashing out the financial plan, hashing out the artistic plan, and doing more sort of market research about where we'd want to put things and where we'd want to advertise and that sort of stuff. And then obviously we had a shoestring budget to start with. We had nothing.
Yeah.
And as you well know, academics notoriously underpaid, so it really was a shoestring budget.
Especially paleontology.
Yes. So I spent 3 months doing sort of viral marketing myself, posting on places in Reddit, posting on places in Facebook, on various other image websites, things like that, just drumming up, testing the water, seeing if people were interested in this idea. And the response was overwhelming. Everyone was like, whoa, this is a great idea.
Yeah.
So we took it to Kickstarter, and we had a goal of £10,000. We were thinking it might need 20,000 really to do everything. And then we were blown away. We made 1,600% funded. And yeah, the response was enormously positive.
I think a big thing for that response, it was due to the art. Seriously.
Yeah.
Because it's a D&D book, so maybe you were supposed to have only D&D audience to buy it. But once you have Mark Whitton, that is one of the most renowned paleo artists in the world, making incredible art that is, for me, is still incredible when I look at the book and I see Mark's artwork, and I just say, this is a D&D core game book. Not even dinosaur encyclopedias have this quality of illustration. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me, the idea of a player that doesn't know anything about dinosaurs, is not even interested, but maybe he has his game master, it has it, so he's like, let me have a look at it, and he see this, it just blows my mind away. So I was continuing to nodding to your story, because it was for me exactly absolutely the same.
Yeah.
I started to play D&D actually later, around when I was 26 in 2016, and then I was playing, between when I moved to Belfast for my PhD. I was playing remotely with my friends in Italy, and then in my office in Belfast there were some people playing, so I was going to their houses to play. But it was, not something that was serious, just a hobby. And then COVID arrived, and because we needed to find a way to keep our mind healthy and safe, the best thing was find a hobby. And a good hobby is storytelling. And actually, I started to be I'm not a dungeon master. I started to be a keeper. I started with Call of Cthulhu as my first mastered adventure, and actually I based it on the Bone War in Como Bluff in 1910 in New York. So
amazing.
Yeah, it was all related to early paleontology in North America. And then I also felt in love with Critical Role, And I remember as it was yesterday, I was in my Belfast apartment. There was the episode where in the second campaign, the Mighty Nine, for which you will see soon, hopefully, the animation in Prime Video, the Mighty Nine goes to this island, and Matthew Mercer, the DM, make them encounter first a Deinonychus. Wow, cool. And then a giant albino T-Rex. Like, but it's an island. How is it supposed to work? Of course, it doesn't work. It's fantasy. But why? Why do you have to? Because I know Matthew Mercer as a dungeon master, he really goes into the science. He really goes into details. But why do you go into details in other stuff? And for dinosaur, you just leave it out to fantasy. And then I get the books of D&D. Oh, okay, let's go to see the dinosaur part. When I was a kid, I was already reading my D&D books from the 3.5, and they had dinosaurs, but very short parts. And now with the 5th edition, I was reading it. I was like, okay, the dinosaur part. 2 pages. This giant Leviathan from the past. Okay, they should be cool. Look at the difficult rate. 3.
Yeah, exactly.
5. A gargantuan beast, 5. So I was like, this is very underwhelming, to say the least. So actually, I opened my second Instagram account, Dice and Dinosaur. Literally, the name says all, Dice and Dinosaur, where I also started to make my spreadsheet for dinosaur stats in a more scientific way. And at a certain point, I was speaking to a friend of mine that is a paleontological influencer in Italy, say, maybe we could try, what about start to write a D&D books about dinosaurs? And we started to collect ideas literally a week after your Kickstarter opened.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry. But we look at the index. It was exactly almost 1-to-1 to the index we were creating. Like, no!
Really? Wow.
But now I have my own Cyberzoid that I will tell later, so don't feel bad. Actually, I said, okay, they did it before us, let's just buy it and enjoy it. But to say that the path was incredibly the same, and I think it was exactly the same as for many other people.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's why people were interested in this product. When I started to look on Twitter, when Twitter was a little more sane, there were much more response about, oh yeah, a dinosaur book for D&D, this is interesting, this is cool, blah, 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 blah. Okay, there should be a good economic response, marketing response to this, and you show that.
Yeah, but it wasn't for lack of effort. We spent an awful long time prepping for that.
Yeah.
As I said, it was 8 months prep and then another 3 months of actual marketing before we launched. So it was definitely if we hadn't have done that, it would have launched and would have made a fraction that it did, most certainly. And it's funny that you should say that you were lining up to do basically the same project yourself. I think a lot of people were. I think a lot of what we feel about the 5e dinosaurs, about them being underwhelming, is shared amongst the community. And I've seen other projects come and go that sort of do the same thing. But we had sort of the stars aligned for us, and we had Mark as his huge name behind it as well.
Yeah.
And obviously we took a significantly more scientific approach than other people had done in the past. So there were a few 5e sort of compendiums of dinosaurs that people had created. Some of them were certainly improvements on the 5e stats. Others were, let's just have a wider diversity, but the same approach. It's where they're quite simple. But we wanted to really get into the nitty gritty. And there's another thing as well, is that we're really passionate about science education. So as reading the profiles, you'll see, we crammed in as much information as we could in a digestible format and provided references so that people would know that we're serious about this. It's not made up. Here's the citations.
To see scientific citation in a D&D book, again, it's crazy. And I love it. I'm all for it.
Well, one of the things we actually spent a long time prepping and thinking about how we wanted to do that, because obviously it's not formatted like a journal. It doesn't have in-text citations for each specific comment. We decided that broke up the text. It made it too difficult for most people to read, and so we just sort of pumped them into a references section for each creature.
I tried
And the other
to
thing as
find
well is that
I tried to find an example, so just
sure, yeah.
so there is it. There it is.
Yeah. And the other thing as well was we were advised time and time again, now put the references all at the back of the book in one big reference section that people can then go to. They won't.
No.
No one. That's what academics do. That's
Yeah.
not what the general public will do. So we were like, right, let's have essentially a list of further reading or core references that people might be interested in if they want to have a little dabble in the science. And yeah, the feedback from our community is that was the right thing to do. People really like it.
I need to ask you this. Who came up with the idea of including the flora? Because that among everything in the book, and I love the book from page 1 to page the last page. But the thing that really hit me hard, positively speaking, was the the floral composition of each formation, because again, such a level of information, of detailed information, you won't find it in encyclopedias, in dinosaur books. It's literally difficult to find information about the plants.
Yeah. So that was my idea, and for exactly that reason, I grew up reading dinosaur fact books, and the dinosaurs were always discussed in isolation. It would be, here is some sauropod. It's this tall and this long and weighed this much, and it ate these ate plants, and maybe it was in this part of the world. But no animal exists in isolation. Everything exists in an ecosystem, right? So I was always really underwhelmed by those sort of dinosaur fact books that would tell you a little bit of information about one specific animal. I always wanted to have a dinosaur fact book that said, like, here is a place, here's what lived there, here's the plants that were there, here's what the weather was, here's what the geology is, here's everything. And so we were like, we discussed whether or not that would be plausible to do. The difficulty is that that's a lot of artwork to commission, because it's new artwork that's not been done before.
Yeah.
So but we figured we could do 4. We did 4. It worked out pretty well. More than 4, I would love one day to do a book that's nothing but these holistic environments. It's just 20 or 30 of them. Maybe someday, but for now we're sticking to 4 per book. We partnered up with Julianne Kiley to do some of the paleo art.
I know him. Yeah.
And she's a paleobotanist, so she's phenomenal for that as well, and helped with the research too. And for Dr. Drohlin's, we had Emily help as well with some of the research. So we really tried to pull together a team that could cover all aspects.
Just for an example,
the only thing that really annoyed me in terms of with the plants was that because we wanted to do 5, they don't fit on 2 pages properly.
Yeah.
They kind of spill over. So we're gonna go with 4 plants moving forward for each formation, because it just makes designing the book a lot easier. But yeah, and funnily enough, some of the plants in Dr. Drohlin's are plants that had never been reconstructed before.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
reconstruction, which is crazy, really.
Yeah. Well,
I just love that it's a silly Dungeons and Dragons book, and it has something reconstructed in it that's never been done before.
So, if you have to pick up from the Dr. Dronis the dinosaur or the creature, because since Mark Whitton was there, I saw his fingertips, I saw his touch on the huge amount of pterosaurs that is in this book. I could see Mark Whitton written like a giant in this book. So, among all the creatures, which one was the one that you loved the most to write down?
Okay, so first I would say in terms of the content of the creatures in the book, you'll notice that some of the artwork is licensed, some of the artwork is commission new. So because of Mark's background as a pterosaur researcher, and also he researches a lot into theropods. Pterosaurs and theropods are somewhat overrepresented in the book, and that's kind of
I saw it, but you're fixing it in Professor Primula, because I saw the huge amount of other sources, and that was my point to I'm gonna bake also this Kickstarter, because there are a lot of other sources coming.
Thank you. But which of the creatures was the funnest to write? I'm gonna betray my own ideology here, and I'm gonna say that some of the fantasy dinosaurs, we had backers custom dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And one of them is called Wretchglow, which is a Spinosaurus crossed with an anglerfish. Yeah. And I think that was the funnest to write, because we could say, well, it's what's its motivations? This is an intelligent thing. This is it can be evil aligned, and it can do all sorts of crazy things. There's no limits on what we want it to do. I think that was the funnest to write. But to be honest, I enjoyed the whole process. Writing all of them has been wonderful. We have the way we do it is that we do the research first. Mm-hmm. Then we sit down, and then I design the abilities and the stat block as a whole based on that research. So it's always sort of the same process of identifying key phrases, identifying key descriptions that we think could translate to being potentially an ability.
Yeah. So the anglerfish Spinosaur, I mean, if I have to say, if you allow me one criticism on this book, it's the over-representation of Spinosaur. Because I know because it was from the people that bake the most, but to have just 3 different Spinosaur as special creature, but I know this comes from the fan. Damn you, dinosaur fans, you and your Spinosaur.
It's even worse than that as well, because with the optional magical rules for the Spinosaurus, you can have another 4 variants as well. So there's 7 in total, something silly like that. Because there's I've got my copy. This is my beaten up display copy here. But yeah, 78, 74, 70 something, 75. So yeah, there's another, under the optional magical rules, there's 4 more variants of Spinosaurus. So there's 7 here. I mean, they're only minor changes, but they allow you to re-describe what it looks like and how it's acting in combat. So especially the one that can fly.
But as someone that is a researcher in paleopathology, since my PhD was in paleopathology, to see Big Al as the one of those special creature represented with specific abilities connected to the pathologies, I was like, no, okay, you won the internet today, because this is incredible. So now you are moving towards Professor Primula's. The Kickstarter is going amazingly, and congratulations again, because today you reach another milestone. I let you say what it is.
Yeah, so literally less than an hour ago, we reached the £140,000 mark, which unlocks all of the book's content. What we did this time is we figured out exactly how much it costs to do. With Dr. Drohlin's, basically we spent all of the money we got from it. Yeah. We wanted to make it the best it could possibly be, so we commissioned loads of extra pieces. We spent way more time and money on designing stuff and doing the research and playtesting. So we wanted to do that again, but we wanted to make sure that we weren't overexerting ourselves or overextended. So we staggered everything behind stretch goals all the way up to 140k, and we smashed it. And we're only a third of the way through the campaign, so who knows where we'll go beyond this.
Yeah, I really hope that it goes even higher, because you deserve it more and more. what can you tell us in advance for the new Professor Primula? Like a dinosaur or a feature that you think that is super cool to play, or something that you can gift us?
Yeah, sure. So we've actually we really like content transparency. So on the Kickstarter page, there's a couple of images that show you everything that's in the book. So you can see every animal, you can see apart from the backers custom ones. Although they've now all given me their plans. No Spinosaurs, thankfully.
Okay.
But of the content that's listed, I think one of the things that I'm most excited for is we've designed a system for whilst you're out on adventures, uncovering fossil localities and harvesting fossils. And then
Yeah.
because we have the new bastion system as well under the 2024 rules, we've included a system for creating a museum in your bastion.
That is the question I wanted to ask first, after, because among the many things that you wrote in the Kickstarter presentation, that is the feature that I'm most intrigued. That I'm intrigued the most. Sorry for my English. So.
Yeah, so the Bastion system provides a really good framework, although it is limited in some respects because it needs to be for the way that it works. So you can't have like an NHM size museum. You would have to invest a lot of time and money to make a giant museum. But what we decided to do was come up with a way to have the players design the way the museum would look, but also an actual structural system for how much foot traffic your museum can generate, how much money it can generate, based on its size and based on the layout of how you place artifacts and fossils in your museum. So there's definitely going to be a system, a way of a most efficient way of laying out your museum, which generates more money. But whether or not you can do that will depend on what you find. So you might say, okay, well, if I have, when we do size categories in the same way that you have sort of normal D&D size categories where you have like small, medium, large, huge, gargantuan, that sort of stuff. So you might be like, well, we could have a high value medium thing and then two huge things, or we could have 4 medium things and then we can have the high value, and try and figure out how much you can maybe generate per bastion term based on that. But we've also got a system that runs alongside that, which is, depending on the rarity of stuff you include, it increases the chances of basically someone trying to rob the museum. Because this is the D&D world, you're running around in a party, there are other people running around in parties, some of them are not so nice. So we quite like the idea of these players, go on adventures, they find a magical artifact that's a sword or something, they want to put it in their museum, they uncover some fossils, they put those in the museum, and then another group of adventurers come along and like, well, we'll take that sword, thank you, and try and rob the museum. So we've got a whole system for that, lots of things planned. We will have to tweak things as we go through playtesting, so I can't say with certainty everything that will be included down to the very specific details. But I really like the idea of having additional NPCs that are role agnostic. So by that, what I mean is you have a stat block that's like a master criminal for an Ocean's 11 style heist on your museum, and they have an ability that lets them move through a wall, but it doesn't describe how they do that, and it's left up to the dungeon master to describe how they do that. They might be like Bane, where they're huge and muscly and smash through it. They might have some sort of teleporting thing, or they have some ghostish powers where they can phase through walls. We wanted to make it so you could have essentially like costumed villains come and annoy the party, and try and steal their artifacts, and have side quests where you can recover them and then you can generate more income and maybe find more artifacts that these people have stolen, that sort of stuff.
Just listening to you, I have like dozens of campaign ideas forming. It's incredible. Seriously.
I think that's one of the problems, is that we have too many ideas.
Yeah, it's always that. To start, it's difficult to unlock one idea. When you start, it's like you open a dam. It's just
exactly. Yeah.
What can you tell us about the new playable species of Neanderthal?
Yeah, so the draft design for Neanderthals are on the Kickstarter as well. The images are a bit small, so it can be a bit hard to read. But with Neanderthals, um, we wanted to really communicate the science for them. We started off probably a bit too light because we were trying to keep the page count from getting out of control. But the wonderful people on our Discord community said, you know what, do more, just do more. You can fit more in here. So we've provided a lot of information about the real science behind Neanderthals and what we know about them as a people. And then we've sort of spun off into some fantasy stuff, very clearly defined as fantasy, based on that real science about how they would function in a D&D world if they were, you know, a small community of people that are pushed to the edges of civilization. They're not really seen very often. They're quite rare. How they would work
do you consider them? Sorry to interrupt. Do you consider them as human variation, or is a different thing?
So what we've done, they might be a little bit powerful. We ran this past our community, and they wanted a bit more. They wanted them to be a bit stronger. We will see what the playtesting does. See if we trim stuff back. So what we've done with Neanderthals is we've included some rules for tool making.
Okay.
That allows them to create tools for whatever they need, and when they create it, they become proficient with it. But they can only have one thing created at a time. We've given them resistance to cold damage because they are, that's based on reality. They would have been better suited than modern humans at resisting cold due to their shorter stature. And we gave them an ability called True Human Variant, so they also get a feat.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're really so they're very strong in terms of that. So imagine you get a normal human variant where you get to pick a feat, and based on Tasha's Cauldron, that is rather. We've capped it as a feat that would be allowed up to level 4 if you're using level caps for your feats, which is basically how it works in 2024, right? In that some feats have become available at different levels, and the higher level ones are really, really strong. So we want to avoid that for starting. But you basically get a feat, a cool little tool thing. You get resistance to cold, and then also some stuff about increasing travel distance, speed in a snowy environment. So an awful lot. But really the reason why we thought that would be okay to do is because something like cold resistance is powerful, but it's situationally powerful, and the dungeon master really is in control. Unless you're playing if you're playing like Icewind Dale, or if you're playing a preset campaign that's going to be heavily snow based, and Neanderthal is literally the best thing that it could possibly be for that. But that's kind of what they're all about, right? So we did want that to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's so in the moment of the game for a snowy environment that, again, Frost Maiden, Neanderthal is super OP. 9 Hells, Descendant to the Avernus is not useless, but they have their weak moment, let's say.
Yeah, exactly.
So, no, but speaking about playable species, I'm trying very badly to try to create a D&D campaign in my channel, a short one using the Dr. Drohlin, because I want to play Agile Horak. I published my paper on Yolosaurus, and you created a species based on Yolosaurus. I had to play Agile Horak so badly.
I'm sorry that they're sneaky and kind of evil coded. They're a bit.
Listen, I'm one of those DM that I might even allow chromatic dragons to be good, because I can't believe that everything is always bad and everything is always nice. I want a metallic dragon to be evil. I want chromatic dragon that wants to be good. So a Yelorak that wants to be good can be good.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why what we decided to do with our custom playable races and custom species is is rather than say, you know, this is a goblin and it's evil, we would say, this is a species. Here are their abilities. Here's an example of one of their societies, and here's the culture of that society. So with the Jorak, they basically live in a mountain city, and they use their pheromone ability to control other creatures and other races to do the dirty work for them. And it's all about political espionage in that society. But that doesn't have to be your one.
Exactly.
They can just have a cool pheromone power.
Exactly. So I still have to read through all the species because there's a ton of information. But I mean, just seen a Yolosaurus. What is a sorcerer? A wizard. A wizard. Yolosaurus is a lot. And then you created what so among all the classes of D&D, the one that I always not hated but didn't like to play was the ranger, because for me the ranger in especially the 2014 D&D 5e edition, it was not good. But then you made
powerful.
You made the sorry, because I don't remember the big game hunter. I want to play it. I want to play just to reach the 17th level, just for that.
Yeah. So the idea behind the big game hunter, and we hope it's carried in the artwork, is it's Van Pelt.
Yeah, everybody that I didn't realize it. So I was showing this to like my party and the people from Italy in the D&D community. I was showing this, and people were like, "Oh, but that is Van Pelt from Jumanji." You're like, is it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah. So we wanted to make a much more powerful ranger, but it is hard to balance in D&D, right? There's basically every party is so varied in strengths. It's hard, but the ranger has always been a standout as being not particularly more than not powerful, because you can do an archery build which does hit hard, although it is outclassed by a fighter with the same sort of build. But we wanted to do one that had a bit more fun to it, that you could do sort of silly things with your ranged attacks. And the idea of making it like Van Pelt, where you'd walk through the supermarket and shoot and ping off of a frying pan and still hit someone, or at least try to, we thought that was really fun. There's a classic cliche in anime where you have a drill attack that always like penetrates your armor and stuff like that. So we wanted to do that sort of silly stuff, and the power shot for genuinely powerful damage. So that was what we thought, we'll do this, and what we'll do is we'll strip back the ability to do melee combat, close combat, and that's pretty much unheard of in class design in D&D. No one seems to do that, and I can understand why, because taking stuff away feels bad. But we felt in this case, if you're going to play a big game hunter, you're going to be what they call the great white hunter, he's called. We want it to be like, that's what you are. You can't pull a sword out and swish it around as well. You have to have your gun, and you have to shoot at people in a silly way.
Yeah. But what you did with the Game Hunter that really inspired me was something that I was thinking a lot since I started to play like almost every day since the COVID time. And when I get my experience in TTRPG growing higher and higher day after day, is that there are now in the market, there are many games. Especially now in 3 weeks I'm going to Italy for a GameCon convention only for role-playing games. It's the biggest one in Italy. Where we are going to present also a beta test for the Cyberzoic project, is that there are hundreds of games. There are many variations of D&D. There are many games that can be played instead of D&D. D&D is like the father of everything. But then you have sons, cousins, granddaughter, grandniece, exactly, blah, blah, blah. But there is one thing that D&D now, because it's old and is still attached to the old roots, kind of fail in comparison to more modern games. That is the absence of the narrative point in combat. For example, you see this also in Critical Role. You spend 10 minutes to describe a fantastic scene. You have the best idea ever. You are super clever. And you came up with a plan that is perfect. You flourish it with the best description that not even Lovecraft can do. Throw the dice, 1. And everything goes to shit. No. If you put a lot of efforts in that, you should be awarded. And you did. We finished the hunt. It's a little thing, because it's not that the entire manual, the entire game book, all the things that you add new for D&D is narrative based. It's just a little thing, but that little thing tells a lot about, and tell me if I'm wrong, about your philosophy for D&D in a broader way. That is not just the throw of the dice, but also the interpretation of the people on the table, and to award the efforts that the people puts on the table. It's not just, it's my turn. I hit, okay, next turn.
Exactly. No. Yeah, you're spot on. So exactly right. So that's my philosophy. I'm a dungeon master. I'm a forever DM now, it seems. And that is the approach I like to take. You know, in D&D, they have the rules for inspiration, so you can kind of say,
but it's shit.
It's a bit. I mean, it's situationally it's brilliant, but if someone on my table describes something really well to me, they don't necessarily have to roll. I can just say, look, you've described that flawlessly. That's what happens. So that is my philosophy, and I do want to try and carry that, but not force it on people, because other people have different play styles, and everyone has their own way of doing things, and what's fun for me might not be fun for other people.
Exactly.
So it's always finding a balance. With the Finish the Hunt, the ranger, the big game hunter, is inherently a bit silly. We wanted to make it so we actually say you have to say a quit or the attack fails. That was the only time where we said no. We really want to say you have to do something here that is narrative. If you don't, it doesn't work, because the whole point of this is to have something narrative. And it'll probably be obvious when I say it, but the attack is based on power word kill. Yeah. And power word kill has essentially the same type of thing, where you have to say a word. You say you need a verbal command, but it didn't feel right to limit it to just a one word thing. So we were like, well, let's make it be a quip. And it really carries the whole theme of the big game hunter. It gives the opportunity to really live the fantasy of in Jurassic Park 2: The Lost World, when you're finally aiming at the T-Rex and you can say, like, I've got you now, bang. That's something like that. That's the idea. And yeah, that is the philosophy that we kind of follow. But we don't force it into every aspect of the game.
But you say that you don't force, but on the other way, I think that if a player decides to play the big game hunter from level 4 and he keeps up from an entire campaign to level 17, I think they want to do it.
Yeah.
So they will be forced, but I don't think they will be felt forced, because you have to have a certain mindset to play the big game hunter. So I think we are towards the end. I want to thank all the people in chat. Sorry if we didn't read all the messages. Although there is a comment by Dario that there is Kanya in the 9 Hells. Dario is the director of the Farsight game, the game that we are using now to make the Cyberzoic version. He's also, like you, a game designer that at a certain point say, okay, I want to make a good sci-fi manual. Let's do it, and let's do the Kickstarter adventure. And so he also tells me the craziness behind a Kickstarter campaign.
Oh yeah, there's a lot that goes on.
Yeah. So, as a final question, actually, two final questions.
Sure.
The first one would be, what are you looking most from Professor Primula's?
Sorry, what do you mean? What are we looking forward to the most?
What is that feature, creature, note that you put in the book that you say, I'm so excited for the player to discover this one, to play this thing?
I'm really. I mean, there's so many strange things.
I understand, but that's why it's a difficult question, because I ask you for one, and I'm a bastard. I know. I'm asking for one.
Can I give you two? Can I
Okay.
give you two, please?
Okay.
Okay. So I'm quite. It sounds a bit silly, but I'm quite excited for players to see Herrerasaurus.
Okay.
Because of the phylogenetic. Yeah. It's kind of like a bland, almost theropod-like predatory dinosaur, but we're toying with the ideas for rules for it, but we want to really try and carry across the phylogenetic confusion that this animal's had. So having that be included in the rules to try and trigger the players to have to learn something about its relationships to other animals might be quite exciting, or the idea that it looks like it's going to behave like a theropod dinosaur, but it isn't, so it doesn't, is also quite fun. So, but we're yet to figure that out. But that's something I'm
Okay.
nerdily excited about.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The other one is Leviathan. We've given it the ability to capsize ships because that's what it would have been able to do. So that is horrific for a D&D campaign. I cannot wait to hear the horror stories that come out of people venturing on the ocean and their ship is capsized and then they have to fight something seriously dangerous.
Basically Pinocchio.
Basically. So those are two. We also Heliocorporeon as well. We're coming up with an idea for a buzzsaw attack that you keep rolling dice until you roll a 1, so it can do a, because it's like, obviously its jaw doesn't really spin in real life, but the idea that under its magical rules it could like perpetually deal lots of slashing damage. We will cap it so it's not going to be too crazy. And then also potentially, I'm a cruel, mean DM. Potentially destroy gear by buzzing through it.
That is mean.
I mean, rust monsters exist, so
true.
It's a precedent that has been set by Wizards of the Coast themselves. But having that in an aquatic setting,
that is almost as mean as casting counterspell when your cleric does cure wounds.
I don't do that. I'm not that.
I did that. I'm a very bad DM. I did that once, and my players hated me to the core.
I just like making animals that are. There's a lot of content that's not threatening, and high damage is one thing. The threat of killing a player through damage is one thing, but the threat of disrupting a mission or a campaign by damaging equipment, by destroying your mode of transport, it is incredibly punishing. But it's also a good point of storytelling. It also gives the opportunity to my philosophy is, okay, if I break my player's sword, I'm going to put breadcrumbs down that there's a tomb nearby with some magic, it's got flame blade and flame tongue in it, or whatever. So they get an upgrade eventually. You have a moment of pain followed by a great reward, and I think that's what I like to set the foundation for. Whether or not other DMs put the reward in afterwards, I suppose, is not in my control. But that's my kind of design and play style.
Yeah, I imagine a player. I spent the last 10 sessions trying to build this beautiful dragon scale armor. Zoom.
Yeah, yeah, Buzz.
And we're right to the last question. I
Sure.
know that you also publish Dr. Drohlin for Pathfinder.
Yes.
And I saw that you also plan to do it for the Professor Primula.
Yeah.
Even hypothetically, speculative speaking, is there another game setting where you want to create something for? Especially from a paleontological point of view.
I've been thinking
Even
about...
if you don't do it, just just a dream.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about maybe reaching out to Critical Role for their new system, and
Oh,
seeing if it's something that they would be interested in. But so far, their stuff's all really, really high fantasy. The truth is that even the other third third party, I don't want to say D&D spin-offs because they're not, but there are other game systems that aren't Call of Cthulhu, that aren't already established, Blades in the Dark, that sort of stuff. When you get like D20, so that there's that Kickstarter for D20 that raised millions. You look at the number of people that have backed it; it's tens of thousands. But for Dungeons and Dragons, there's like 9 million players worldwide. So if you look proportionally at how much we're able to raise on Kickstarter to fund our books being created and to fund their conversion into Pathfinder, if we were to try and do that for another game system that is not as popular, I think the truth is that we wouldn't be able to afford to do it. So part of what we are wanting to do with this Kickstarter is excess that we will raise hopefully in the next month or so, next 20 days. We will be able to potentially put into other not necessarily game systems, but other plans. So we're really heavily discussing alternative language versions, because we want to do science education. We want to reach everyone if we can, but that's expensive. It's the truth, and because this is scientific information, it's not just a standard fantasy book. We do have specific terminology, we have specific phraseology, and so that needs to be really rewritten by a scientist to make sure it's correct. So that's hiring another scientist to translate 100,000 words. It's really expensive. So whether or not we can do that, who knows? But we certainly want to explore those sorts of ideas. We might be able to get support externally for that. We're considering, can we apply for a grant for that sort of thing? Now that we've demonstrated that not only does this form of outreach work, it works well. We're wanting to do all sorts of things like that, but it's finding the time as well, because now we'll be full into writing Professor Primula's. So, or finishing writing it. We're pretty doing pretty good on the progress, but it's going to take all of our attention. So there's lots to think about, but it would be fun if we could say partner with Critical Role and say, let's bring some cool dinosaurs to your system. The likelihood that they would reply, pretty slim probably.
Well, the more I look Critical Role, the more I see that most of them are really into dinosaurs.
Okay.
Travis,
I mean, I noticed that. But...
Travis is into dinosaur. Laura's into dinosaur. Matthew Meza is strongly into dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I think at this point also the others. So because they put a lot of quotes from Jurassic Park, for example. So maybe
it's a possibility. We'll see. We reach out to a variety of people periodically. For various sorts of partnerships and to send free stuff, because we're just like, what, you've got a platform. If we send you a copy and you like it, just mention it, or don't. It can just be for you. And we're very fortunate that we are able to do that sort of thing, where we can sort of reach out to people. But more often than not, you don't hear back because emails just disappear into an inbox with 100,000 messages coming in, because when someone's a celebrity, they're just getting messaged constantly. So we'll see. There's a variety of people we'd like to speak to and partner with this sort of stuff.
In conclusion, I know that you are going to DINOCO from Darren Naish, right?
Yeah, well, I'm the director of DINOCON with Darren Naish, co-director.
Okay.
So
I didn't know that. Sorry.
No, there's a whole story there. So as you well know, Darren Naish has been running TETZOO, Tetrapod Zoology Con, for the last 11 years. He wants to expand that into a much bigger event because it's been growing year on year on year. And it's basically just him and John Conway were doing it pretty much on their own. A few bits of help from other people, but him and I had discussions previously about plans that Michael O'Sullivan and I had about the convention scene. My wife has a bit of a background working with the convention scene already. So we were floating the idea, maybe we could do this. There isn't really a dinosaur-themed convention in the UK. We've got the expertise. Because we've got PalaeoGames set up as a company, we've got a springboard from there that we don't have to redo all of that stuff. And then Darren basically approached us and said, I've heard your idea. I think it's spot on. I want to do it too. Let's work together. And so we founded DinoCon UK. And this year, on August 16th and 17th, at the University of Exeter, is DinoCon's first year, or rather TETZOOCon's 12th year. And it's going to be big. It's going to be exciting. We just on Friday announced our guest of honor.
Yeah.
So big things are happening, and that's just one name in many that are going to be there. It's going to be a pretty sizable event.
I was discussing with my girlfriend that we might come as well. So
please do. We'd love to have you there.
Yeah. I know that my girlfriend is in the chat, so hi, sweetie. She doesn't like to play TTRPG, so we need to make her.
My partner's a bit the same. She has played TTRPGs with me before, but usually I'm talking too much about dinosaurs throughout it. And she's like, "Can we just get on with the story? I just want to." She likes to play druids, so but yeah, we'll see. I think I might be a bit busy at DinoCon to be sitting down for a game. Michael, however, was quite keen on the idea, so we'll see. Who knows?
We got a message from Dario from Farsight. Also, Critical Role is a thing, but Darrington Press is another. After all, they are a new gamer in the TTRPG industry, and they are probably interested in new growing opportunities. That is also true, because with Darrington Press, with what's the name of the new game? Dagger Art. With Dagger Art, they might look for new venues, new settings.
Yeah, it's so we the thing that I think always shocks people is when you sit down and you say, right, a book like Dr. Drohlin's, okay, if we want to convert this to a different system, that I can tell you the sorts of prices involved in converting this to Pathfinder. So it costs about, because you have to have a separate print run, and the re-editing, proofreading, and the redesign of the whole book, because all of the sentences change and the structure of the boxes change and the artwork needs to be moved. It costs about £45,000. I mean, it's a lot of money. And when you approach a company, and that's something like Daggerheart's pretty big, but if you come to them and say, I've got this, but it's going to cost you, and then in dollars it's $60,000, they'll just laugh you out the door, because it's a lot of work. Now it might, if they're willing to do some of the conversion off with their own staff, and that's a sunk cost that they're doing, then that would would be significantly cheaper, but it still requires print runs and then distribution and all sorts. So it adds up a lot. And that's why we ran a separate Kickstarter for the Pathfinder version, and we raised what we needed, plus maybe a little bit more, enough that we were able to do some other bits behind the scenes and do some other conversions and get it on things like Foundry VTT, which is also very expensive to do.
Yeah.
Because it's programming, basically. You're paying someone to do programming, and programmers are very expensive. So it's crazy, the business side of it, that obviously the vast majority of players don't have to worry about. And this is where I'm very fortunate in that I have some contacts, and I've been immersed in the business world for a while now. So I'm able to handle this sort of side of it, and navigate it in a way that's not as intimidating for me as it might be for some other people. We as scientists, we do things like grant applications, and writing a letter to someone for £100,000 so that you can look at dead bugs is something that we do. So doing absurd things with absurd amounts of money becomes the norm for us. So that's part of it. And you don't see people don't. It's not that they don't appreciate that, but it's that they're often not aware of it. So sometimes people make suggestions to us in email. They're like, "Oh, can you just do this?" Unaware that that's going to require £15,000 worth of investment, and we can't just drop £15,000 on every plan that someone comes up with. But the community is eager to see us do more of this stuff, to see it applied to more areas, particularly to do their favorite dinosaur. Everyone wants me to do their favorite dinosaur.
Which dinosaur you need to do for me, right?
Go on.
Oranosaur.
Yeah. What might be that?
Well, in Professor Primula, there's a Parasaurolophus. So as of now, I'm happy. So
yeah. Yeah, well, and Prosaurolophus as well. We managed to get a couple in there as well. So, but yeah, it's a bit wild, and it's not often I get to talk about this stuff. So thank you for giving me a platform to info dump the realities.
Absolutely, it was actually my greatest pleasure to have you here and to learn more about the process, because for me it was very interesting, the behind the scene of it. And you just provide us with a cascade of information that is super. No, absolutely, actually, super interesting. Okay, so I think we can stop here. I thank you so much for your time, and
thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
I hope in the future we might be able to play on the same table. My greatest dream right now is to go to an SVP and organize a D&D dinosaur table with famous people that I know they play, like Thomas Holtz. Thomas Holtz is a red box old D&D master. And Andrew Farkey from California is also a D&D player. Danielle Dufault, the Paleo artist from Toronto, she's a huge D&D player. So when I throw the idea,
I would love to be there for that as well. I would love to be there for that, but it's getting over there is the hard part.
Yeah, when I throw the idea of an SVP official D&D session, they were like, But to be honest, during SVP, the meeting of the Society of Vertebrate Paleontology, to find a free evening where you have a lot of energy to play a 3-hour session, it's almost impossible, because I know SVP, but who knows? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with every big conference. You're knackered from, you have too many cups of tea and coffee. You've sat through 8 hours of lectures. You go home, you've had a few drinks, and then you sit down and try and do something, and you fall asleep.
Exactly. Nathan, it has been a pleasure to have you here. I hope we can redo this for maybe a possible third book later in the future. Who knows?
We have plans now that Professor Primula's is all basically signed off financially. As long as everyone doesn't cancel their pledges, then we know we can do this book, and we're gonna be doing well with that. So we do have, well, I I could provide you a list with 200 animals that people request that we haven't been able to.
I can imagine.
And we, because we licensed some of the artwork as well, we actually had plans to include, so particularly arthropods, because I'm an invertebrate paleontologist. We wanted loads more arthropods, and then every single image we were like, can we use this? Can we use this? No, it's already licensed. No, it's commissioned. You can't use it. No, we'll have to commission some extras, and by that point we'd already filled up our slots. So then there will definitely be a third book. I can tell you that now. There will be, and we will get as much interesting and fun stuff as we can into it as possible.
So I have vibes of Paleozoic here, but who knows? We'll see.
You'll see. You'll see. There'll always be some dinosaurs.
Of course. Nathan, it has been a pleasure. Thank you everybody for being here with us. I hope this little chat has inspired you to go and bake the Kickstarter that is passing through the chat here thanks to our moderation. See you next. We will have a short live in Italy, in Italian, tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Before me going to the UK on Wednesday, because I'm going to Birmingham to visit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I will spend a few days with Steven Lothar for a few research item, which is gonna be very cool. So yeah, I will be in the UK for until Saturday.
Excellent.
Take care guys, and see you next. Mi metto qui alla fine del video perché lo sto editando. Sono il Filippo del futuro, ciao Filippo del passato. È il 7 aprile e oggi è finita la campagna Kickstarter del professor Primulas e la campagna è ufficialmente terminata con 286.390 sterline. Siamo sopra i 300.000 euro. Questo è un grandissimo, importantissimo risultato per PalaeoGames, giustamente se lo meritano, ma anche per la divulgazione paleontologica tramite i giochi di ruolo e anche per l'ambiente del GDR stesso. Questo apre tante porte e grandi cose in futuro. Ci vediamo alla prossima. Sono appena tornato dal play. Le cose si intrecciano.